Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're thinking of selling your home, then you already know, first impressions count. Today I'm taking you through my process for cleaning up and transforming this garden so it helps the whole property stand out and attract those buyers. Let's take a quick look through. The front garden is the very first thing buyers see, even before they step inside the door. A tidy, inviting garden can be the difference between excited interest and a quick drive-by. A great garden says well-loved home, and it sets the tone for everything that follows. If the potential buyers see a tired and untidy front garden, then they will enter the house with a slightly negative mindset. If they are met with a well-maintained and well-kept garden, they are more likely to walk in the front door with a positive attitude toward the property. First impression count. You can see that this back garden has lots of potential to be very appealing to buyers, especially in the inner city where back gardens are typically very small. It just needs a bit of a lift and tidy up to show it full beauty. I'm going to start by fixing up these old brick pavers. Over time, roots and ground movement push bricks out of alignment, especially if the paving is on sand like these are, which makes paths and patios not just untidy, but potentially unsafe. The good thing about paving on sand is that it's quick and easy to fix. Level paths and patios are a huge selling point. It shows the home's being cared for and gives buyers one less job to worry about. This area had a large pot on it. Over time, it had begun to sink. Once the ground has shifted, water could no longer run off into the garden bed and started to pool around the pot. This made the paving sink even more. To fix it, I'm going to remove the old bricks, compact the ground, add some new sand to build the levels back up, and then repave the area so that it's back to the same level as the rest of the patio. If you want to know my process of how to pave on sand, I'll add a link to a how-to video in the description. This area is the opposite. Tree and plant roots have pushed it up. To fix this, I'm going to remove the bricks, remove some roots, and then repave. You want to be mindful of removing roots, especially from trees. Taking too much can harm it, but roots are also stabilizing it. If you remove anything major, the tree can become unstable and potentially dangerous. If you're unsure, it's best to get an arborist to come and take a look. I used to be an arborist, so I'm confident that what I remove here won't cause any problems. I'm using a masonry saw here. It uses water to keep the dust under control. It's great for small jobs like this as it's quick and doesn't require setting up power cords or connecting hoses. I'm not really sure what these posts were for, but they're making the area feel a bit cluttered. As they don't have a purpose anymore, I'm going to remove them. Nothing says fresh and cared for like neat, weed-free garden beds, so I'm pulling out every weed I see. I'm also spreading out any mounded up soil or compost piles in the garden. Even ground makes the space look larger and instantly neater. Lumps and bumps can look messy and even put off some buyers. Tidying up any stepstones will not only make the area look more organized and aesthetically pleasing, but also make it more functional. All the pavers are just sitting on the ground and aren't mortared in, which make this job quick and easy. It also allows the new owners to move them around if they want to change it up to suit their needs. If I was doing this for long-lasting results, I would give them a crushed rock base and set them on mortar. Rule number 1 for garden prep: prune. I'm cutting back anything that blocks the view, covers windows, or makes the space feel cramped. Opening up trees and shrubs not only brings in more light, it makes both front and back gardens look bigger and more welcoming. This tree has a few dead branches that can be removed. This rosemary has started to become woody and unattractive. It's not offering much value to the area, so unfortunately has to go. We've got an old stump in the middle of the garden bed here. It's pretty old and rotten, so won't take a huge effort to get out. It's worth spending the time to remove it. I'm going to continue removing any old leaf litter and weeds from the garden beds. Right, so, on to the front. There was once a large paperbark tree here, and as you can see, the stump still remains. It's a bit ugly and a stump grinder can't fit through the gate. I'm not going to remove it entirely, but I'm going to make it lower and less visible. I'm also going to cut some grooves into it to speed up the rotting process. I'm going to declutter this section, removing anything that doesn't belong. The soil is way too high, so I'll get rid of a few barrow loads to level it off. I'll spread it all around the back garden, where there's more space. You don't have to spend a fortune on new plants, but adding a few can really enhance the area, and it's worth investing in. We have spoken about the importance of the front garden already. I've taken a few cuttings from the other side to try and balance the garden a bit. Screaming utilities while keeping things tidy is subtle, but it makes a big difference in how buyers see the space. I'm going to strategically plant this viburnum to screen the gas meter so that it's less visible when you walk through the front gate. Let's take a quick look at some mulch options. There are three main options in my area. You have pine bark, which can give a cottage feel, but it can also end up looking a bit like a McDonald's playground. Black mulch. This makes the green of the plant stand out, but can also stain any paving or concrete. Not a good option in my opinion. Or U mulch. This is my favorite, and I almost exclusively use this type. It looks and smells great and really improves the condition of the soil. Adding mulch to the garden is one of my favourite parts. It not only keeps the weeds away, it's also good for the soil, holds in moisture, makes colours pop, and gives the whole space a unified look. You can see that it really lifts the whole area. It's not overly expensive either, so is a real must-do if you want to improve the look of the garden. I'm going to pop in some lavender to add a bit of colour, and I'm replacing the rosemary with something a bit more attractive. Again, these aren't expensive plants but make a big difference. Rearranging plants and pots that you already have is a great way to save some money. Too many pots can clutter a garden and make it feel chaotic, but keeping some and placing them strategically can really work in your favour. I'm using a pot that was unused and repotting a bay tree that was hidden in the back garden. It makes a nice feature at the front of the house but also hides the ugly downpipes. Side paths can easily get ignored, but they're a key part of daily living, and a meat path here means access for bins, bikes, or just walking through without muddy shoes. I'm clearing out all the weeds, removing any rubbish, and leveling out the soil before laying down a layer of compacted granitic sand. Again, it's not an expensive material, but really cleans up the side path. Being a light colour, it helps brighten up the otherwise dark area. Once you've got it all down and spread evenly, give it a bit of a run over with a plate compactor to make it a nice solid surface to walk on. A defined side path not only tidies things up, but it can also make the garden feel bigger, more usable, and much more valuable. I'm hanging this ornamental grape back up, as it had to be taken down to allow for painting. Look for tangled branches, plants growing too close, and anything hiding the garden's best features. If you can see more sky, so can your buyers. I'm taking off a few branches from this apricot as they are slightly blocking the path. Before I call it done, I always finish with a general tidy. Clean up paths and driveways, remove stray leaves, empty bins, and sweep or hose down hard surfaces. Freshly cleaned, uncluttered spaces not only look great in person, but will really shine in the sale photos. Putting in a few days' work in the garden really pays off, giving your property a fresh, spacious, and well-maintained look, and you really don't have to spend a fortune. Remember, buyers make decisions from the very first glance, and a tidy, practical, and beautiful garden can help your place stand out above the rest. Thanks for watching. If you've got your own garden makeover tips or want to see more before and afters, leave your comments down below. Good luck and happy gardening. Hi everyone, and welcome. This week I'm going to replace an old picket fence. Let me know if you prefer having a voice, or if you'd rather I just kept quiet and occasionally added some text. I'll start by removing the old one. The pickets are all pretty dead, but I'll hang on to the rails. I've got a future project at my place that they'll come in handy for. The old posts don't have much life left, but at least they're easy to get out in one piece. I like to use cypress posts, as it's naturally resistant to rot and insect damage, which make it ideal for outdoor applications. This means your structures will last longer with minimal maintenance. It's also a sustainable timber, if correctly sourced. It's a bit more expensive than treated pine, but its durability and low maintenance make it a reasonable cost-effective option. I'll put all the materials and their dimensions in the video description for you. I'm going to roughly cut them to size and give them a bit of a clean up with the sander. Our end posts and gate posts are going to be exposed on this fence. They are 100 by 100 millimeters. For the line posts, I'm using 125 by 75. They'll be lower than the end posts and set behind the pickets, so won't be visible from the street. I like to use a timber preserver on the parts of the posts that'll be in the soil. It protects them from water and makes them last a bit longer. I'm setting these to 600 millimeters deep. A good rule of thumb is to set them at least a third of the post height deep, but I like to put them in a bit more than that. These will be 1200 high, so I've put them in half the post's height. I'm setting up some strings to keep them in line. Once all the holes are dug, it's time to get some concrete ready. For the concrete mix, I'm using 3 parts aggregate, 2 parts sand, and 1 part cement. I'll put all the proportions in the video description. When I set posts, I like to put some aggregate at the bottom of the hole and rest the post directly on it, and then fill around it with concrete. This allows any water to pass through so that it doesn't get stuck and rot the bottom. Get your post into place, using the string lines and a level. I work alone, so just clamp an old bit of timber to the bottom to hold it in place while I pour in the concrete. If you have an extra person, you can just get them to hold it steady instead. Our line posts are going to be set 58 millimeters further back. I'm just measuring back from the line I set for the end posts, because there are too many plants in the way to set up a new string. If you have space to get a new one in, it will make setting them a bit easier. Once the posts are in and the concrete has set, you would ideally add the plinth board. The one I'm using is in the process of being painted, so to keep the job moving, I'm going to do this step later and start marking out the post for the rails. Marking out the rails is easier if the plinth's already in. You can just measure up from it, or make a stencil so that all the checks will be at the same height. I'm doing it the hard way with a straight edge and a level. The checks will be in the front of the line posts, but in the back of the end and gate posts. Set the depth of the saw to the thickness of the rails. Make a few slices and then chisel it out. Do the checks in all the posts. Around the gate, you'll only be cutting halfway through the posts. It just makes for a neater finish. Trim up your rails. Any joins should meet on a post. When that's done, you can trim your posts to the finished height. Now, you can start making up your gate. I'm making mine out of the same timber that I used for the rails. screw it all together, making sure that it's nice and square. My end and gate posts are going to sit 150mm above the pickets and will have pointed tops. To do this, I'm setting the saw on a 45-degree angle and cutting around the posts. Attach your rails. Now that my plinth is ready, I can screw it on. I've attached it to the ends using a metal bracket, but you can just use a piece of timber if you prefer. The plinth is lower on this side because of the slope. I'm going to trim off the bottom of it so that it doesn't sit in the dirt. The pickets and rails have all been painted before I attach them. You don't have to do it this way, but it makes painting the sides of the pickets a lot less tedious. I recommend painting the rails first though. It's much easier to do without the pickets on. I've made up a spacer to get a uniform gap between them, and I'm countersinking the screws so that they can be filled in later. Attach the gate hinges. Attach a picket to each side of the gate. I want these to be the same height as the rest of the fence. I'm clamping a guide to the bottom so that it's easier to get them all the same height. Then, space your pickets out evenly. Depending on the size of your gate, the gaps might be ever so slightly smaller or bigger than the ones on the fence. If it's only a few millimeters difference, you won't be able to notice it. Once you're happy with the spacing, start screwing them on. Fill in your screw holes with some exterior filler, and then you can slot it into place. Fill in the rest of your screw holes. Once it is set, give it a quick sand. If you painted the pickets first like I did, they will need a bit of touching up and a final coat. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you liked having the voice or not. I'm a bit undecided about it, so happy to do future videos with or without the voiceover. Welcome back. Today I'm transforming this small inner city courtyard. The original paving is old, cracked 1970s brick, and there's mud wherever you look. But we're about to create something timeless, practical, and full of character, using beautiful, reclaimed, pressed red bricks. I'm going to start by removing this old paving. Given that it was laid in the 70s, I'm going to put a mask on just in case there's any nasty building materials under it. As you can see, this paving was laid without a crushed rock base, or any base at all, so it's no surprise that it's broken up a bit over time. Honestly, I'm a little surprised it's held up as well as it has. Just in case there is any asbestos underneath, I'm spraying it all with water before I lift it out. The water will help prevent the release of fibres into the air if it gets broken up. Now that the paving has been removed, I'm going to dig out about 200mm of soil to allow for the crushed rock base and mortar bed. Paving is only as good as its base, and this digging sets the stage for everything that comes next. It's worth taking the time to get it right and avoid any height issues later on. It's not the most glamorous part of the job, but if you have a good audiobook and a cup of coffee, it can actually be quite enjoyable. If pushing 4 cubic meters of soil up a hill doesn't sound like much fun to you, just look on the bright side. At least it's not raining. Once we've started digging, it's important to make sure we remove the right amount of soil. Not too little, not too much. To do this, I'm setting up string lines at the correct level. That way I can measure down from them. Before laying any paving, the very first question you need to answer is, where is the water going to go? Drainage is absolutely crucial, especially when you're working with mortar paving. Unlike paving on sand, where water can penetrate through the gaps and soak into the soil, mortar creates a solid, impermeable surface. That means all the water landing here needs somewhere to flow. If you don't manage it properly, water will pool near your house walls, fences, or shed, causing damage and even undermining your paving base. In this courtyard, the paving is sloped in 2 key directions. First, it follows the natural slope of the garden toward the driveway, shed, and deck steps, so water naturally runs downhill. To manage where the water ends up, I'm installing a strip drain. This catchment channel will collect runoff and direct it safely away, ideally linking into the stormwater system. To direct the water here, I'm going to set a second slope away from the fence. This means that my drain is at the lowest point of the paving. Now that we have the correct slopes on the strings, you can measure down and remove any soil that isn't 200 millimeters lower than the line. Now, this part, the crushed rock base, is absolutely critical. If you take away just one tip from this video, it's this: your paving is only as good as its base. Why is the base so important? Because it's the foundation that supports every brick and every step you take on your courtyard. Without a solid base, everything above it is vulnerable to movement, sinking, cracking, you name it. We dug down 200 millimeters below the old paving. Now we're going to add about 100 millimeters of crushed rock. This crushed rock, sometimes called road base, is made of sharp, angular stones that lock together tightly when compacted. Unlike soil, which can absorb water and expand or contract, crushed rock drains water efficiently and keeps moisture away from the surface layers. This prevents puddling and reduces ground heave, meaning your paving will stay level and crack-free for much longer. Compacting this layer solidly creates a stable, durable platform that doesn't shift or settle over time, even with heavy foot traffic. I'm using a straight edge and a level to make sure the crushed rock is nice and flat. Once you're happy that it's evenly spread and flat, you can grab a plate compactor and give it a good whack down. Compacting the crushed rock firmly gives us a strong, stable foundation that prevents sinking or movement. Skipping or skimping on this step is one of the biggest reasons new paving jobs fail prematurely. It can look good for a few months or even a year, but without a proper base, movement and unevenness are almost inevitable. Now that all the hard work's done, it's time for the fun part, the bricks. These aren't just any bricks. These are locally made pressed reds, over 100 years old. Made white here from clay pressed into individual molds and then fired in high-temperature kilns. They're incredibly durable, with a distinctive look that has stood the test of time. That longevity means your new courtyard will be both timeless and durable for decades to come. Reusing these bricks is also fantastic for the environment. It's a sustainable choice that helps reduce waste and the energy footprint involved in making new materials. Plus, they bring a bit of history and character that new bricks simply can't match. Laying the paving on mortar, as we're doing here, instead of a sand bed, comes with some real long-term benefits. Mortar creates a solid, locked surface that lasts much longer than sand-laid paving, especially in high-traffic areas. Because the joints are fixed with mortar, weeds have a much harder time finding their way up, so you'll spend less time weeding between the bricks. It's also much easier to pressure wash the surface clean. Nothing shifts, and there's no sand washing out between the joints. Mortared paving is also better for creating perfectly level surfaces, and is ideal if you want to include features like steps or curved edges. Plus, the whole area feels more stable underfoot, supporting heavy furniture and entertaining with no movement beneath you. All these factors combine to make mortar paving a fantastic choice when you want a durable, low-maintenance finish. While mortar paving has lots of great advantages, it's worth mentioning that it's not always the best choice everywhere. If you live in an area with very cold winters and heavy frosts, or very reactive soils, mortar paving can be prone to cracking and breaking over time. That's mainly because of ground heave. When water in the soil freezes and expands, it pushes the paving upwards. Mortar is rigid and doesn't handle this movement well. Before laying any bricks, setting up string lines is a crucial step. These strings mark exactly where the edges of your paving will be, so it's here you make sure all levels, slopes and angles are absolutely perfect. Take your time to get this right. Any mistakes now will be very costly down the line, leading to uneven surfaces or drainage problems that are difficult and expensive to fix. Make sure the strings are as tight as possible to minimize sagging in the middle, which can give you a false reading. The straighter the line, the more accurate your guide will be. And don't forget to use a string line level to check that you have the correct slope. This ensures water drains away properly and your paving won't hold puddles or cause problems with runoff. With solid, level string lines in place, you've got a reliable frame to build on. It sets the foundation for a professional, long-lasting paving job. Okay, let's start mixing up some mortar. If you don't have a mixer, you can do this step by hand in a barrow, but you might need another cup of coffee at this point. I'll put a link to a video on how to mix mortar without a mixer in the video description for you. If you've got this far, you've probably learned a fair bit about paving on mortar already. I do have another video that shows the process for a basket weave pattern. I'll also put that in the video description in case you want to take a look. The mortar mix I'm using here is 4 parts brick sand to 1 part cement. If you want more information on how to mix this to the right consistency, I recommend watching my How to Pave on Mortar video or How to Mix Mortar in a Barrow video. To get this first row in, I'm going to follow my 2 sting lines to get it on the right angle. One thing to know about these pressed reds, because they were handmade over a century ago, their sizes vary. Some are 20mm longer and 10mm wider than others, which makes laying them a bit of an art. To get a neat, attractive pattern, you need to consider these differences carefully and adjust your laying pattern and mortar joints accordingly. This gives the paving a unique, rustic charm, but does require a bit of patience and concentration. Once you've finished the first row, move your string line across for the next one. Allow for the width of the brick, plus 8 to 10mm for the grout line. Use your guidelines, the string running horizontally, to make sure that you're getting the right angle for drainage. Just keep moving your sting lines across for each row. You're going to be doing this for a while. Remember that audiobook you started during the bigging stage? Well, now is a good time to lock back into it. Let's talk about the pattern I've chosen for these beautiful old pressed reds. Here, I'm laying them in a running bond, also known as a stretcher bond. This is the most common brick layout you'll see in residential landscapes, and for good reason. Unlike basket weave or stack bond patterns, the running bond layout staggers each brick so that the joints are never aligned. This breaks up the straight lines, meaning stress and weight are distributed much more evenly. The result? A much stronger, more durable surface that's less likely to crack over time. This pattern looks fantastic in small patios and entertainment areas, making spaces feel organized and classic. It can handle significant weight from outdoor furniture, planters, and even the endless flow of guests coming and going. There's a lot of versatility too. There are several variations on the running bond. You can mix them for a unique look or stick with the classic. Either way, it's well suited to the scale of this courtyard and gives a timeless, harmonious result. So if you want a hard-wearing, good-looking finish with minimal waste, the running bond or stretcher bond pattern is hard to beat, especially in small garden entertaining spaces like this. unless the weather has been very cold or wet. It's usually okay to walk carefully on the paving the following day. You do want to be careful not to accidentally kick any bricks out of position though. They will need to be set in new mortar if you do dislodge any. I'm going to leave some space for a small garden bed next to the fence. The green will soften the area nicely and help hide the fence. Because the bricks were salvaged from a demolition, they often need a bit of a scrape down to remove any old mortar. It's usually pretty easy to get off, but any stubborn parts can be removed later when we give it an acid wash. Just leave out any bricks that need to be cut for now. We'll get to them at the next step. To soften the look and better integrate with the garden beds, I'm going to introduce a gentle curve to the edge. This is going to sit on top of our paving to hold back the garden soil and also neatly finish it off without having to do too many cuts. Curved edges break up the harsh lines traditionally associated with brick paving and add visual interest, making the courtyard feel more inviting and organic. Any broken bricks are great to use for the cuts. It saves on wastage as well. I'm going to get the strip drain ready. I'll concrete it into place at the same time as I put the cuts in around it. Once it is set, I'll hook it up to the stormwater. Dropping the cuts into place is always one of the most satisfying parts of the job. When setting your drain in place, make sure it sits slightly lower than the bricks to allow any water to easily run into it. Don't worry if there's a small gap, we're going to fill it with grout later on. Angle your drain in the direction that you want the water to run. Don't skip the fine details. It's worth spending 5 minutes to put in the small cuts. They always look great at the end. To finish off the edge of the paving, you're going to want to add a berm. This holds the bricks on the outside securely in place and stops them from being dislodged by wheelbarrows or lawnmowers in the future. Don't worry, this will be covered with soil and won't be visible. With all the bricks now in place, the final step to lock everything together is the grouting. I'm using a wet mix of sand and cement, about 3 parts sand to 1 part cement. This gives a strong weather-resistant joint that helps stop weeds and keeps the paving solid. The aim is to really work this mix down into every joint. There are a couple of ways to do it. First is with a trowel, pressing the grout firmly into the cracks to make sure there are no voids. Another option is to use a grout bag, which operates much like a piping bag you'd use for icing a cake. Simply fill it up, then squeeze the mix along the joints so it's placed precisely where you need it. This method can be neater and often cuts down on cleaning, since there's usually less excess to sponge off the surface. The only thing to watch out for is blockages. If your mix is too dry or contains any small stones or unmixed clumps, the bag can clog up quickly. So, make sure your grout is well mixed and just wet enough for a smooth, easy flow. Once all the joints are filled, I sponge the surface clean with water. The key here is to wring the sponge out well. You don't want to dilute the grout in the joints, and to rinse the sponge often. Grouting does more than just tidy the look. It binds the paving together, adds strength, and ensures a smooth, comfortable surface underfoot. Once the grouting is done and you've cleaned the surface, you might notice a slight haze from cement residue on the bricks. That's where an acid wash comes in. It's a quick, effective way to restore brightness and remove that film. But timing is everything here. Before using any acid, make sure the grout has fully set, which usually takes 1 to 2 weeks depending on the weather. If you rush the acid wash before the grout's set, you risk turning it yellow or, even worse, washing the grout out of the joints. So, patience pays off. Once the grout is fully cured, dilute the acid as recommended, apply evenly, scrub it with a stiff brush, and then rinse thoroughly with plenty of water to neutralize any residue. I'll be making a video showing the process once this grout is dried. This courtyard has come a long way. From a muddy, uneven garden to a space that's timeless, durable, and full of character. With the right preparation, quality materials, and a bit of patience, you can create something that not only looks beautiful, but will last for decades to come. I hope you found this video helpful, and good luck with your paving project. Feel free to leave a comment below with any questions. I'm always happy to help where I can. Welcome everyone. This project's all about turning this outdoor space into something special. It's a blank canvas waiting to be shaped, with a big new patio made from these beautiful old reds, also known as pressed reds. These bricks are full of character, history, and authentic charm. Unlike my last video, which was a full tutorial, this one is more about sharing the journey as I build something amazing for this home. I'm going to start by digging out the entire area for the patio. It's going to be a big one. I want to drop it down to about 200 millimeters lower than the final height of the bricks. This extra depth will accommodate the base and the mortar bed. Setting up string lines early makes sure I lock in the exact levels and establish a slope away from the house for proper drainage. Getting this right up front means the rainwater won't pool near the foundation. Next up is the crushed rock base. I'm using a solid 100 millimeters of crushed rock, and I'm not kidding when I say I need a lot of it. Around 4 cubic meters for this size patio. I've mentioned that in past videos, so I won't go on about it for too long. But the base is crucial. It provides a stable, level foundation that prevents movement and sinking over time. To make it extra solid, I'm adding about 2% cement to the rock mixture. This sets the base even firmer, so the patio will stand the test of time. Normally, if I needed this amount of rock, I would just get it delivered. However, the streets here are tight, and there's absolutely nowhere for me to get it dropped without blocking the road or a lane, so I'm going to have to do it all on the back of the ute. The upside is that it's much easier to fill a barrel off the back than it is to shovel it all off the ground. I can also get it closer than a delivery truck, so it's less time pushing the barrow. I use my level and straight edge to get the crushed rock perfectly flat and even, carefully checking across the whole area to eliminate any high or low spots. I'm also using my string lines as a guide to make sure I maintain the correct slope away from the house for proper drainage. This step is vital to ensure a uniform base before I compact the surface with the compactor. Several passes packs down that rock really hard. To get the best results, I spray the rock with water while compacting. This helps it settle tighter and firm up. Then, after giving it all a good whack down, I'm going to add another layer of rock and compact that. That base is looking good now. Really solid, nice and uniform, and with the perfect slope. So, let's get some bricks happening. I'm working with about 700 salvaged bricks from the old garden here, but to cover the size of the patio, I need around 1,000 more reclaimed old reds delivered. They were all made around 100 years ago, just 300 metres down the road, so it's a great bit of local history. Another quick stop to grab brick sand and cement, and then we're almost ready to start dropping some bricks. Setting up string lines is one of the most important steps before laying any paving. I stretch the strings tightly between fixed points like stakes or existing edges, setting them at the exact height I want the finished patio surface to be. Making sure they are as tight as I can possibly get them to eliminate any sagging. These lines serve as a clear visual guide for the whole job, helping me keep consistent levels and maintain the right slope away from the house. I never rush this step. Once I have the full set on the sides, I like to run a string in a crisscross pattern from corner to corner. That way I can check that the heights are right in the middle of the area. Placing a brick under the string shows me how thick the mortar bed will be. It's much easier to fix any height issues at this stage before laying the bricks down. I'm using a streamline level to check the angle. They give you an idea but aren't 100% accurate. I'm using 2 of them and they show different readings when placed right next to each other. The mortar I'm using is a mix of 4 parts sand to 1 part cement. My trusty mixer is a little battered and dented from years of hard use, and it has its quirks. Sometimes it makes some strange noises like it's trying to clear its throat, and especially in the morning, it doesn't like to start spinning right away, kind of like most of us really. I usually have to give it a little help with the first spin, and after that, it settles in and keeps going strong for the rest of the day, mixing every batch just like it's supposed to. That pink string that you can see running from left to right is my main guide. I'm going to set all my other strings off it. This will help me keep a nice even slope away from the house. For the bricks, I'm going to be setting them in a running bond pattern. It's simple, strong, and really highlights the texture and colour variation of these reclaimed old reds. This first row is going to sit about 8mm off the house. This section is completely covered by the roof and doesn't get any moisture, so there's no chance of water getting stuck and rotting the cladding. Now I'm going to set my border down one side. This will help me keep the paving nice and square. The bricks vary in length by up to 20mm and in width by up to 10mm, so it's easy to lose the shape if you're not careful. I'm going to make the gaps between them around 10mm, but this will vary slightly to accommodate the different brick sizes. It's all a bit of a jigsaw puzzle really. I'm working through some lovely early spring weather here in Australia. Cold, fresh mornings that slowly warm up through the day. My fingers thaw out by around 8:30 each morning, perfect for getting stuck in. The patio is big, but the size means it's going to be a fantastic outdoor area for the whole family. The bricks used in this patio were made right here in Northcote, Victoria, from clayey dud just a few hundred metres down the road. The Northcote brickworks started back in 1866 and quickly grew to be a major producer, firing millions of bricks each year with their pioneering Hoffman kilns. Despite some tough times during depressions and strikes, the brickworks was central to Northcote's identity and economy for over a century. After the brickworks eventually closed, the site was repurposed as a landfill tip, where rubbish was dumped for many years to fill the quarry. Once the landfill reached capacity, the area was transformed into what is now the beautiful All Nations Park, a vibrant green space used and loved by the community. Northcote itself has seen an incredible transformation. Historically a working-class suburb known for its brickworks, orchards, and industrial roots, Northcote was considered a low socio-economic area, or slum, well into the 1990s. Poor transport links and nearby industries shaped its early development. But over the past 2 decades, Northcote has undergone significant gentrification. The arrival of new residents, rising property prices, and revitalisation have turned it into one of Melbourne's most livable and eclectic suburbs, full of culture, cafes, and community. This patio, built with bricks from the area's historic past, is now part of that ongoing renewal story. This pile has been sitting here for a while and I've noticed a few redback spiders on them, so I'll be a bit careful. Redbacks are pretty common around Melbourne, especially in brick piles, garden sheds, and other quiet sheltered spots. Now, I get it, they've got a seriously bad reputation, and lots of people are scared of them. But honestly, I find them kind of beautiful, and definitely misunderstood. Like a lot of Aussie wildlife, they get an unfair rap. Only the female redback's bite is venomous, and most people only get bitten when they accidentally stick their hand into the web, because these spiders tend to stay put in their nests. Their fangs are tiny, so even if you do get bitten, it usually just itches like crazy. Sometimes bites get worse with sweating, nausea, or muscle weakness, but that's pretty uncommon. Thanks to antivenom being around since the 50s, deaths are super rare now. They're not aggressive little guys. They only bite if they feel threatened, like when you poke into their web by accident. Some people confuse them with black widows. They look a bit similar, but they're actually different spiders. And yes, that bright red stripe on the female's back is how they got their name. Besides the scary stories, redbacks do some real good, hunting down insects like cockroaches, flies and moths, helping keep your garden's ecosystem in balance. So yeah, they might give you a fright, but they deserve some respect as important little garden helpers. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to this patio. Using bricks for garden paving became widely popular in Australia during the late 1980s and early 1990s, driven by a surge in demand for durable and attractive materials for driveways, pathways, and garden areas. While bricks themselves have an ancient history, used in construction and paving since Roman times, the trend of using fired bricks specifically for domestic garden paving is a fairly recent development. Bricks have been around for thousands of years, with the earliest sun-dried bricks dating back to ancient Mesopotamia around 4000 BCE. Civilizations like the Egyptians and Romans later innovated with fired bricks, making them tougher and more weather-resistant. The Romans were pioneers in creating roads and walkways using bricks, many of which have survived to this day, laying the foundation for the modern use of bricks in landscaping. The rise of brick paving in Australian gardens followed the Industrial Revolution, when machines made brick production faster and more affordable. This made bricks accessible for a variety of uses beyond building walls. Paving became a popular choice due to bricks' combination of durability and classic aesthetic appeal. People liked that brick pathways and patios carried a piece of history feel, with a handcrafted look, bringing timeless beauty to outdoor spaces. Bricks aren't just about good looks, they're highly practical for modern landscaping too. Known for their ability to withstand heavy foot traffic, harsh weather, and the test of time, brick patios stay beautiful for decades with minimal maintenance. You can customize them in countless colors, shapes, and patterns to create a unique outdoor space that complements your home. Another great benefit is that bricks are eco-friendly. Made from natural clay, they are sustainable and can be recycled or repurposed. Overall, investing in a brick patio adds lasting value, both in beauty and function, to your property, connecting the rich heritage of brickmaking with the practical needs of today's outdoor living. It's another cracking day in Melbourne, perfect for paving. I've really been getting some luck with the weather lately. I always try to wear a mask when using cement. It's important to protect your lungs from harmful airborne particles, particularly crystalline silica dust, which is found in cement and can cause serious and potentially fatal lung diseases like silicosis and lung cancer. Inhaling cement dust can also lead to irritation of the nose, throat, and lungs, causing coughing, wheezing, and shortness of breath, and can contribute to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. You can see it floating in the air after I shovel it into the mixer. If you're going to use it, look after yourself and chuck a mask on. Better to be safe than sorry. So that this patio doesn't look like a giant rectangle, I'm adding in a section here to break it up. This is where the barbecue is going to sit. Since there's a large tree near the patio, I'm installing a plastic root barrier along the edge to protect the paving long term. Most tree roots grow within the top 600 millimeters of soil, so I'm digging a trench about 600 millimeters deep and roughly 100 millimeters wide. I'm placing tough, specially designed plastic root barrier into this trench. It's made to resist root penetration. When roots growing from the tree hit the barrier, they're diverted downwards. To make sure roots don't grow underneath or around it, I bend the bottom part of the plastic back towards the tree. This guides the roots back towards the tree and away from the patio, preventing them from lifting bricks or causing damage years down the track. I know what you're thinking. Rad looking overpants. I always like to look my best for you guys. I really enjoy the cutting process when working with bricks. There's something satisfying about carefully measuring, marking, and making precise cuts. It's a chance to slow down and focus on the details. Taking your time here is absolutely worth it, because bad cuts can really stand out once the paving is done. A poorly cut brick or uneven edge can make the whole job look sloppy and rushed, even if the rest of the paving is perfect. Getting your cuts right not only improves the overall appearance, but also helps ensure everything fits together neatly and stays stable over time. So, don't rush this part, embrace the process, be patient, and aim for clean, crisp cuts. It really pays off in the finished look and the satisfaction of knowing you've done a quality job. I'm using a small battery-powered masonry saw to cut bricks, and it has quite a surprising amount of power for its size. One of the best things about this saw is that you can cut with water, which really helps keep the dust down while you're working. When cutting bricks with a saw like this, you have a few options. You can cut dry and attach a dust bag or vacuum to capture the dust, but that setup can make the saw harder to maneuver. Alternatively, you can cut wet by either connecting a hose directly to the saw or by filling a water bottle attached to the saw. I prefer using the bottle method because it makes the saw easier to handle, especially for more awkward or detailed cuts. Wet cutting not only reduces dust, but also cools the blade, which helps it cut more smoothly and last longer. Because this saw is cordless, it gives you great mobility on site without worrying about power cords getting in the way. For brick cutting projects, this type of saw strikes a good balance between power, dust control, and ease of use, making it a handy tool whether you're a beginner or experienced DIYer. Now that all the cuts are done, I'm going to mortar them into place. The final cuts differ in size because these bricks naturally vary in dimensions. I use these small gaps to compensate for those differences across each row, ensuring the paving stays even and looks clean. It's almost eerie watching those hot air balloons drifting through the morning fog. I'm sure it's a great view, but honestly, the idea of being up there in a tiny basket full of people, fire and gas doesn't really appeal to me at all. Each to their own, I guess. I've got no issue with heights, but think I'll give the ballooning a miss. I've watched some of them attempt to land on windy days, and it's not pretty. For grouting, I'm using two different techniques on this project. For the first 4 rows, I'm using a grout bag. This method is perfect for avoiding any splashing on the timber cladding nearby. It keeps everything much cleaner. I find grout bags especially useful for tricky, fiddly areas, or when you want to keep a specific space neat. However, I don't use grout bags for larger areas because they tend to get blocked by even the smallest pebbles. And the finish can look rough unless you do a heavy sponge off afterwards, which kind of defeats the purpose of using the bag in the first place. It appears that my luck with the weather has finally run out. Unfortunately, it couldn't have come at a worse time. If the freshly grouted bricks get rained on, it will cause the grout to run all over the clean bricks and I'll have to spend hours sponging them all off again. I've got the covers ready to quickly pull over the whole area if the heavens do decide to open. I'll be honest, grouting isn't my favorite part of the job. It can be slow and a bit tedious after a while, but it's a crucial step. The grout fills the joints neatly, binds the bricks securely, and gives the whole surface that polished, professional look that really finishes it off. The grout mix I use is a simple blend of 3 parts brick sand to 1 part cement. To make sure the clients get exactly what they want, I mix up 4 different types of brick sand so they can choose their favorite color and texture. It's also important to know that the brand of cement can affect the final shade of your grout. Some make it lighter, others darker. That's why I always recommend making a small practice batch first and letting it dry for at least 3 days. This way, you can see the final color before you commit to doing the whole job. One key tip is to make sure you pack the grout right down to the bottom of the joint. Completely filling the gap is essential for strength and durability. It locks the paving together and helps prevent any shifting or movement over time. Finished just in time. I beat the dark and the rain by less than 5 minutes. That's luck right there. Putting in a 14-hour day was worth it. Now that the grouting's done, I'm going to give the paving a light acid wash to remove the haze left behind. To protect the nearby timber cladding, I'm putting up plastic sheeting to prevent any acid splashes. The acid wash is mixed at a ratio of 10 parts water to 1 part acid, just enough to clean the surface without damaging the bricks or surrounding areas. You might want to consider putting in some control cuts. Personally, if any cracks do develop, I prefer to just grind them out and re-grout that area. The control cuts look ugly and repairing is quick and easy. That's about it for the patio, but for this garden, it's just the beginning. In my next video, I'll be redoing the front area and building some side paths. If you have any ideas on how I can make these videos better for you, please feel free to share them in the comments. Until next time, thanks for watching and bye for now. Morning everyone, welcome back. Today I'm laying big, beautiful natural edge bluestone steppers down the side paths and out the front garden. I'll also be pulling up some old brick paving at the front and reusing them as edging to tie in with the paving I did out the back. Then I'll finish it all off using Tuscan topping to fill in between the stones and give everything a tidy, natural look. This video is a continuation of the garden from my last one. But if you haven't seen that yet, don't worry, this isn't a murder mystery. You'll be able to follow along just fine. So kick back, relax, and let's get stuck in. Out the back, I recently did some paving, and now it's time to tie the front and sides together. Big steppers, some rustic brickwork, and plenty of character. I'm taking up the old bricks at the front. They've done their job for a long time, but it's time for a refresh. I'll be repurposing them for the path edging. They'll link the front to the garden out back, where I used the same bricks, so everything feels connected. For all the paths, I'll be laying the stones on a stable mortar bed, which sits over compacted crushed rock. Doing it this way gives you a solid foundation. No wobbly stones down the track, and it'll handle a bit of foot traffic without breaking a sweat. Once the rock and mortar are in, it's all about setting the stones at natural intervals, making sure everything's as level as it needs to be but still has some natural organic flow. I'm using string lines to guide the height of the crushed rock. This allows me to get a consistent slope throughout the path. I've put down a crushed rock base about 50mm thick. This base is really important because it gives the whole path a strong, stable foundation. It helps with drainage too, letting water filter through instead of pooling on top, which keeps the stones solid and reduces movement over time. Plus, crushed rock compacts nicely, so the mortar and stones have something firm to sit on without shifting or sinking. It's a simple step, but it makes a huge difference in how long the path will last and how good it looks down the track. Now, you might be wondering, why bluestone? Well, these steppers aren't just a pretty face. Bluestone steppers have a backstory that goes way beyond garden dreams. The stuff is an ancient volcanic rock that forms when lava cools and solidifies over millions of years. Most of the bluestone used here in Australia comes from places like the Victorian volcanic plains. It's the kind of rock that's as tough as they come, dense, durable, and built to last through, well, just about anything everyday life throws at it. When these boulders get pulled out of the ground, they're sawn into slabs or cracked into pieces that keep their natural shapes, so every stepper you lay has its own unique edges and character. That's why you get that natural, organic look in a path, nothing cookie cutter or too perfect. Before setting the bluestone on the mortar, I like to prime the underside of each stone using a bonding agent like Bondcrete or Bondmate mixed with a bit of cement and water. This step is important because it helps the mortar grip the stone better, creating a much stronger bond. Without priming, especially on stones that aren't super porous, the mortar might not stick properly and the stones could loosen or move over time. It's a bit of extra work up front that pays off by making the whole path more durable and long-lasting. If you're from around Melbourne or you've just spent time wandering the landways, you've probably noticed those dark cobbled alleys, the ones with character, where plantings, cafes, and history blend together. That's bluestone, used for streets, curbs, and lane paving since the mid-1800s. It started out as the go-to for roads and buildings during the gold rush, cheap, abundant, and easy to cut and haul thanks to convict labour and local know-how. Even the foundations of big-name buildings in town, the Parliament, Town Hall, and some of our earliest public spaces, are bluestone through and through. You'll spot it holding up elegant old churches and some pretty iconic facades around the city. For a while, bluestone fell out of fashion. People found it a bit dark and heavy, but these days it's got heritage status, and folks are keen to keep those original stones as martyrs of history. There's more to the story though. Bluestone has a much older track record. Indigenous Australians have used it for thousands of years, from eel traps and stone houses in Victoria to land markers. There's this amazing eel trap system in Victoria, built from bluestone and still standing after more than 6 millennia. It's not just rock, it's a link to culture, land, and the stories that came long before us. Practically speaking, bluestone nails it in the garden. It's solid enough to stand up to the weather, doesn't get too slippery when wet, and those chunky, irregular shapes mean you can create paths that feel relaxed and natural, not stiff or overly manicured. The surface has a bit of grit too, so even if it rains, they're good underfoot. On the downside, if you're in an area that gets lots of strong sun in summer, bluestone can get pretty toasty. Being a darker stone, it soaks up that heat more than something lighter like sandstone. But for most garden spaces, the good outweighs the bad. Bluestone's pretty low maintenance. Sweep it off every now and then, pressure wash if you've got muddy boots dumping through, and that's about it. If you ever need to rearrange the path or move things around, steppers can be reset pretty easily, as long as the base is right. One thing that makes bluestone a standout these days, besides the look and the history, is that it's actually one of the more environmentally friendly hardscape options out there. It's a natural material, so no need for heaps of chemicals or treatments. And if you're using stone from local quarries, you're also cutting down on transport miles. Plus, bluestone lasts for decades, sometimes centuries, so it's a pretty responsible choice if you care about making something that'll stand the test of time. On this project, bringing in the old bricks for edging isn't just practical, it's a nod to the way Melbourne scrambles and reuses bits of stone all over the place. Sometimes, you find bricks or bluestone in an old garden bed, lever them out, and give them a skin act somewhere else. Brick and bluestone blend beautifully together. The warm tones of the brick complement the cool hues of the bluestone, creating a consistent and harmonious look throughout the garden. So the plan is to keep the bluestone going all the way around the house, and down into the back garden. Honestly, it just makes the whole place feel a lot more put together. When I started this project, I wanted each part of the garden to feel like it belonged to the same story, not like a bunch of different pieces thrown together. Using the same stone everywhere might sound simple, but it really changes the vibe. Walking from the side parts into the backyard, you get this feeling like the garden's flowing naturally, almost like the stone's guiding you around. Bluestone's tough and beautiful, and it just fits, whether you're stepping out back for a coffee or heading down the path to check the plants. For me, it's those little details, like having the same stone underfoot and having the same bricks in different sections, that make a garden feel like home. It's subtle, but it adds up to something special. If you like the look of these steppers, there's also crazy paving, same stone, but cut or split into irregular shapes and laid out in a random pattern. It's great for patios in spaces where you want an even wilder or more rustic character. Bluestone adapts, whether it's a formal entrance or a winding garden path, it always adds something. While I'm laying these bluestone steppers in the back garden, I can't help but think about how important the backyard is in any home. It's often where we relax, unwind, and reconnect with nature after a busy day. Gardens aren't just about looking pretty. They're little outdoor havens where memories get made, whether it's sharing a morning coffee, watching the sunset, or simply listening to the birds. For me, working in the garden is a chance to slow down and be present. It's not just a project, it's part of a lifestyle I really enjoy. And when everything comes together, the stones, the plants, the garden beds, it feels like a little personal sanctuary right at home. Some people tend to neglect the backside of their garden, treating it as just a utility space that doesn't really need to connect with the rest. But I'm going to build the step for the laundry door using the same bricks that run throughout the garden. By doing this, that area won't feel like an afterthought or just a functional spot. It'll flow naturally with the rest of the garden. Using consistent materials like these bricks helps create a sense of unity, so even the practical parts of the yard feel like they belong to the overall design. It's all about making every corner count. The stones that I'm kneeling on here will be in the lawn, so I'm making a brick edge to separate the toppings from the grass. Let's talk for a second about Tuscan topping. If you spent any time poking around garden paths in Victoria, you've probably spotted that warm, earthy gravel underfoot that looks like something straight out of the Mediterranean. That's it. Despite the name, Tuscan topping is actually an Aussie special. It's made from local sandstone or limestone that's been crushed down into a mix of chunky bits and fine dust. The end result? It packs down solid, drains well, and just gives you this gorgeous sun-baked colour that makes any path or garden bed stand out. One of the best things about Tuscan topping is how versatile it is. It's pretty much a go-to for creating garden paths and driveways. It doesn't get slippery, and it feels natural underfoot. Gardeners also use it as a kind of mulch, scattered around garden beds to help keep weeds down and the soil nice and cool underneath. It's got this relaxed vibe that works whether you're after a modern look or something a bit more rustic. There's a bit of history and a story behind it too. The Tuscan label is all about the vibe, borrowing that classic Italian terracotta feel, but the material itself is straight from local Aussie quarries. It got popular as people started moving away from solid concrete or boring old pavers. Folks wanted something that looked amazing, was easy to lay, and fit in with sustainable gardening trends. Designers love Tuscan topping for its effect on colour. It brings out the green in plants, sets off the grey in stonework, and just generally makes everything feel a bit more lively. Plus, it's easy to fix. If your path gets a bit uneven or you want to freshen things up, just rake it over or add a bit more. It's lower maintenance than you'd think, and way better for water drainage than a hard surface. So, whether it's laying down a new path, topping up garden beds, or just adding that touch of Mediterranean style, Tuscan topping fits right in. That's part of why it stood the test of time in so many Aussie gardens. There's still plenty more planned for the back garden, including laying down lawn, creating garden beds, planting, and mulching. All these next steps will really bring the space to life and help everything settle in beautifully. So, while the hardscaping is coming together now, the garden's still a work in progress, with plenty to look forward to as it develops. That's pretty much the story for today. New steppers, old bricks, and a bit of Bluestone history, all tied together in one project. The garden's slowly coming together, bit by bit, with each job linking up with the next. If you've got any thoughts on working with Bluestone, or want to share your own backyard path saga, let me know in the comments. I'm always keen to hear what works for others, or what you try differently. Thanks for following along. Cheers, and see you next time. This garden is about to get a fresh new look, with 2 beautiful paving areas featuring reclaimed bricks. These bricks carry a rich history and unique character, helping us create a space that's both timeless and full of personality. Join me as we carefully bring this garden back to life, step by step, blending craftsmanship with sustainable materials. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm kicking off a garden transformation project here in Ivanhoe, Victoria, a suburb full of character and history, just like the bricks and stones I'm about to work with. This garden felt a bit dark and overgrown. Not in a bad way, but it definitely needed a good spring clean. Lucky for us, it's spring here in Australia, the perfect season for fresh beginnings. We want to keep the big trees here because they provide wonderful privacy and shade, so the challenge is to work around them thoughtfully. Our goal is to bring light, structure, and warmth to the garden, making it a more usable and welcoming space, while still respecting everything that's already there. But before we jump in, here's a little history about Ivanhoe. This land was originally home to the Wurundjeri people, custodians of this area for tens of thousands of years. Later, it became one of Melbourne's earliest garden suburbs, with spacious parks and charming Federation-era homes reminding us of a time when Melbourne was shaping its identity. The suburb expanded significantly with the arrival of a railway line connecting it to Melbourne in the late 1800s, fueling residential growth and the construction of grand homes. Today, Ivanhoe retains its historic charm, with a blend of heritage homes, leafy streets, and significant community landmarks. It is known for its pleasant environment, established community, and connections to early Victorian history. Today, we're focusing on creating 2 medium-sized paving areas, positioned on opposite sides of the garden, bringing balance and defining spaces. I'm using reclaimed old red bricks from the Oakley Brick Company. Brands like this grip me because they're pieces of Melbourne's past still alive underfoot, but I'll talk more about them later. I'm going to dig up the existing bricks on the property and mix them in with the paving as well. This top section of the garden has become quite overgrown, turning what could be a beautiful, usable outdoor space into a tangled jungle. I'm planning to relocate some of the plants and dig out all the weeds. This garden beautifully balances contrasting light conditions, with the bottom section nestled in cool shade and this top section basking in abundant sunshine. The perfect combination, offering flexibility to move seeding depending on the season. Underneath all the mess, there's weed mat laid down. I've never been a fan of weed mat and have always considered it useless. It hasn't stopped the weeds one bit. Most of these weeds are shallow rooted and simply grow right on top of the mat. That weed mat is this horrible plastic stuff that blocks the soil underneath and prevents worms and beneficial insects from freely moving through. It ruins the soil's natural life and can lead to compacted, unhealthy ground. Avoid weed mat in garden beds. Thick organic mulch and good planting are far kinder to the soil and much more effective over time. The plan is to keep the maples and larger shrubs along the fence, not only preserving their shade and structure, but also creating a natural leafy screen to hide the fence. The two paved areas will be linked together by a flowing, curved brick path, which will serve as the garden's main spine. This path will connect the paved sections, the steps, the washing line, and the back gate, creating a smooth and inviting flow throughout the garden. To ensure the path and paved areas line up accurately and maintain the right angles, I'm setting up string lines as reference guides before the paving begins. These string lines help establish precise alignment and layout, so everything sits perfectly in the space. A solid foundation is key to a durable paved area, which is why I'm using a crushed rock base about 100 millimeters thick. This base provides excellent drainage, preventing water from pooling under the surface, and it helps distribute the weight of the paving evenly to avoid shifting or sinking over time. Properly compacted crushed rock creates a stable, long-lasting base that's essential for any quality paving project. Now, here's the fascinating part about Oakley Bricks. The company was founded in 1885 by brothers John and Henry Goding, right on Stanford Road in Oakley. It grew to become one of Victoria's largest brick manufacturers, at one point supplying around 20% of Melbourne's bricks. The brickworks expanded over several decades, eventually covering more than 70 acres and producing millions of bricks, pipes, and tiles. Oakley Brick Company faced its share of ups and downs, closures during coal shortages, hardships through the Great Depression, but it continually innovated. By the mid-20th century, the company was producing the iconic cream-coloured bricks so prevalent in Melbourne homes. Though the brickworks ceased production in the late 1970s and formally closed in 1985, their legacy lives on, especially in the bricks we still see sprinkled across the city. Today, the old site is Brickmakers Park, a quiet reminder of the industry that helped build Melbourne. To make sure the paving slopes correctly away from the house and prevents water pooling near the foundation, I'm setting up string lines to establish the slope before laying any bricks. These string lines act as reference points to keep the paving square, even, and flat, while gradually sloping downward to direct water away from the house. Using string lines for slope control ensures proper drainage and a professional, long-lasting finish. I'm mixing Oakley bricks with some Northkit bricks already here, the same kind I used in some of my previous projects. Bringing these bricks together feels like blending different chapters of Melbourne's brickmaking story. much like a family gathering where everyone with their own stories unites. On the technical side, I'm setting these bricks on sand, not mortar, because there's a large established tree nearby. Mortar would likely crack as roots shift the soil, but sand lets the paving flex a bit and prevents damage. Drainage is also tricky here. This is the lowest point of the garden, and there are no drains to tap into. So the sand base allows water to filter through naturally, preventing pooling or runoff. Once the base and sand bedding are ready, I don't screed the sand flat because each reclaimed brick is different in size and thickness. Instead, I place each brick individually and compact it with an anti-shock hammer. For thinner bricks, I add more sand underneath and hit them down carefully, right until they can't be pressed down any further. It takes patience, but it ensures a stable, even surface, keeping the unique character only reclaimed bricks bring. To create a smooth, natural curve for the paving edge, I'm using a flexible garden hose as a guide. Simply laying the hose down allows me to see and adjust the shape easily before marking the line. It's a simple but effective trick to achieve graceful, flowing curves that add a beautiful organic touch to the garden design. I'm making the edge of the paving a gentle curve to soften the otherwise harsh, straight lines of the bricks. Curves in garden design create a sense of flow and movement, guiding the eye naturally through the space and making the garden feel more inviting and organic. Hard edges can feel rigid and formal, but curved edges introduce a softness that balances structure with nature, helping the paved area blend harmoniously with surrounding plants and greenery. This flowing shape not only enhances the aesthetic appeal, but also supports a relaxing, peaceful atmosphere in the garden. One of my favourite parts of the paving job is doing the cuts. I enjoy focusing on these fine details because they show the care and craftsmanship that goes into the project, and this quality will be evident for years to come. Precise, clean cuts elevate the entire paving job, while poor, sloppy cuts can make even the best laid bricks look rushed and unfinished. Paying attention to these details ensures the finished space looks polished and professional from every angle. Paving on sand offers some great benefits, including flexibility and better drainage, as the sand base adapts to soil movement and water flow. However, it isn't quite as strong or rigid as paving set on mortar. One common issue with sand paving is that the bricks along the edges can sometimes shift or fall away over time. To prevent this, I'm adding a concrete edge around the perimeter. This concrete edging won't be visible once the job's finished, but it will lock the paving together securely, providing stability and keeping everything tightly in place for the long term. I'm filling the gaps between the paving bricks with coarse wash sand, which is ideal because it allows water to drain through easily and helps prevent pooling. After spreading the sand, I pack it down solidly to lock the bricks in place and give the paving stability. Coarse sand is better for this than fine sand because fine sand tends to wash out more easily, which can lead to loose joints over time. The bottom step has been in a temporary state for a while now, with stacked pavers serving as the final step. While functional, it's not the most durable or attractive solution. I'm planning to replace it with a more permanent and solid step made from bluestone. Later, I'll also be using bluestone for garden edging, so everything will tie together nicely, creating a cohesive and elegant finish throughout the space. Bluestone is more than just a building material. It's a remarkable link to both the ancient and colonial history of this region. Indigenous Australians have been using bluestone for over 6,000 years, with archaeological evidence showing its use in sophisticated eel trap systems west of Melbourne. When settlers arrived, they quickly recognised the abundance and durability of this local stone, using it extensively in Melbourne's early infrastructure. Bluestone became synonymous with the city's identity, featured in famous landmarks such as Prince's Bridge, the Old Melbourne Jail, and the walls of the infamous Pentridge Prison, which earned the ironic nickname Bluestone College. The stone was laid by skilled masons, including prison labourers, who shaped it into cobblestones, curbs, and buildings that still stand as a testament to Melbourne's early growth. Using reclaimed bluestone for the garden step brings a tangible connection to this rich and layered story, blending history with the practical beauty of the modern garden. The combination of brick and bluestone here strikes a beautiful contrast. The earthy warmth of the brick brings a cozy richness, while the cool, nuanced tones of bluestone add depth and texture. Together, they create a balanced palette that will pull the garden's design together with subtle sophistication. I've chosen to lay the bricks in a basket weave pattern, which adds a classic and enduring texture to the paving. This design creates a rhythmic interplay of horizontally and vertically placed bricks, bringing depth and architectural interest without overwhelming the space. The pattern introduces a subtle complexity that contrasts beautifully with the garden's flowing curves, balancing structured geometry with natural fluidity. This curved design will echo the shape of the lower paved section, creating a harmonious flow throughout the garden. This paving almost acts as a subtle nod to yin and yang, the harmonious interplay of light and shadow, hardscape and greenery, melding balance, tranquility, and natural flow into the outdoor space. Using any broken bricks in a project is a great way to cut down on waste and make the most of available materials. Instead of throwing them away, I'm using any broken bricks for the cuts needed for the brick paving. Working on projects like this reminds me that gardening is about more than just plants and paths. It's about stories. Stories of people, places, and time passing. Every brick and stone we place quietly carries those stories forward, linking us to the past while setting the stage for new memories. Gardens tell their own story, where every curve, texture, and material plays a role. These spaces are not just for beauty or function, but invite reflection and connection. They become places for family gatherings, quiet moments, and milestones, woven together over time to create a living, evolving story. Thanks so much for joining me for this first step. In the next video, I'll be working on the curved brick pathway, linking these patios, and starting the paved area under the washing line. There's more history, more stories, and plenty more hands-on work ahead. I hope you enjoy seeing this garden come back to life as much as I do. See you next time. In this video, we're creating a curved brick path that seamlessly connects the patios, steps, washing line, and side gate. Using durable mortar set bricks and the classic running bond pattern with smooth curves, this path combines strength, style, and practicality across the garden. Welcome back to part 2 of our garden transformation journey. Today we're concentrating on laying a curved brick path that will tie together the two main paved areas, the steps, the side gate, and the space beneath the washing line. This path will act as the key connection, bringing unity and a smooth flow to the whole outdoor space. I'm pulling up the old bricks to reuse for the new path. I have no idea how long they've been here. Decades probably, but they've held up remarkably well considering they were just laid straight onto the dirt. Before I remove the old concrete pavers, I'm going to give them a quick pressure wash to freshen them up. I plan to snap a few photos and share them on a local notice board, offering them for free to anyone who might find them useful. This approach is not only practical, but also supports sustainability. By passing these materials on instead of sending them to landfill, I can help others with their projects and keep valuable resources circulating. It's a simple way to support the spirit of reuse and recycling that's at the heart of this garden makeover. As I dig out the old paving and clear away the sand, much of this area will be transformed into garden beds. These new beds will provide a wonderful opportunity to introduce a variety of plants that not only soften the harshness of the hard surfaces, but also add vibrant colour, texture, and seasonal interest to the space. By adding greenery alongside the new path and paving, the garden will become more inviting and balanced, creating a seamless transition between the man-made elements and natural surroundings. The presence of plants will also help to break up the monotony of the paved areas, making the outdoor space feel more dynamic and alive. Beyond aesthetics, creating garden beds here offers several practical benefits. They will significantly improve drainage, reducing the risk of water pooling or runoff issues around the paths. Well-placed vegetation can absorb excess rainwater, helping to manage moisture levels and prevent erosion. Furthermore, the new beds will contribute to a more balanced ecosystem within the garden by providing habitats for beneficial insects, birds, and other wildlife. This promotes biodiversity and encourages a healthier, more sustainable outdoor environment. This stage of the project is all about thoughtfully connecting everything through careful planning and attention to detail. The curved path will not only guide footsteps smoothly and naturally between key garden features, but its flowing shape will bring a sense of peace and rhythm to the space. By setting up string lines at different points, I'm able to measure the varying levels accurately and ensure a smooth, consistent transition that ties all the areas together naturally. These strings mark the exact height where the top of the paving will sit, serving as a clear visual guide. This helps me determine how much soil needs to be removed in each spot to accommodate the base layer, mortar, and bricks. While we're on the topic of the base, here it is now. I'm planning to weigh down 100 millimeters of it under the path. I've covered the importance of a solid base in previous videos, so to avoid sounding repetitive, I'll just say it's crucial for the strength and durability of your path. Whatever you do, don't cut corners here. I'm adding some cement to the crushed rock base to help stiffen it up even more, creating a really solid foundation for the path. The cement binds the crushed rock particles together, which reduces movement and increases stability under the paving. This part of the fence has been broken and needs replacing. I'm going to build a small retaining wall here to hold back the soil from next door. I'll start by concreting in some posts. And I seem to have found a water main. I'll go find the shutoff valve and get this sorted out. It turned out to be the neighbour's water line that the plumber had decided to place on this side of the fence. Fortunately, I've probably got some parts in the car to fix it. Should only be a 5-minute delay. So, back to this retaining wall. I'll set the posts now, and once the concrete is hardened, I'll attach some sleepers. The strings will help line them all up, and I'll cut them to the correct height later on. The weather has turned on me, so it looks like I won't get much done today. Might be a good chance to sneak out for a cheeky midweek surf instead. Now that the base layer is fully prepared, it's time to start laying the bricks. It's not the nicest morning to start the paving. The sky's still a bit grey, and there's a dampness in the air. It looks like the worst of it is past though, so hopefully it's just some light showers for the rest of the day. But, of course, it is Melbourne, so anything could happen. I'll keep some covers handy, just in case it turns nasty again. To help set the curve, I'm going to use a power cord. This is a simple trick that lets me easily adjust and test different curve shapes until I find the perfect flow. It helps me visualize how the path will sit in the garden and ensures the bricks follow a smooth, natural arc. It's a practical trick that makes shaping curved pathways much more manageable and precise. I'm using the same bricks as before to maintain visual consistency across the garden. However, this time the bricks will be set on mortar rather than sand. The main reason for this choice is the nature of the site. Sections of the path have a noticeable slope, and sand joints are vulnerable to washing out with rainwater over time, especially on an incline. Additionally, the washing line and side garden are in full shade, which means moss and dirt buildup are common. This area will require pressure cleaning every year to keep it looking fresh, and mortar joints are far more durable under these conditions. Laying a curved brick path is a rewarding challenge. The gentle arcs add an organic feel to the garden. Unlike straight paths, curves invite exploration and soften the geometry of the landscape, making the space feel more inviting and dynamic. Achieving a smooth, even curve requires patience, measuring levels correctly, adjusting the layout, and fitting each brick carefully to maintain the pattern. While it takes more attention than a straight path, the result is a unique addition to the garden and is well worth the extra effort. Once the first row is set, simply follow it carefully with the next one, making sure each brick stays flat and maintains the correct angle. Keep checking alignment and levels as you go to ensure a smooth, even curve throughout the path. I've opted for a running bond layout with a border. This classic brick pattern provides excellent strength, making it less prone to cracking. The border of this new path will match the existing paving edges from the first video, ensuring the whole area ties together. As I lay these reclaimed bricks, I often think about the tough conditions that the workers who originally made them would have faced in 1920s Melbourne. Brickmaking was heavy, manual labour. Workers spent long hours outdoors or in poorly ventilated yards, often exposed to dust and extremes of weather, scorching summers and cold winters. Safety measures were minimal by today's standards. Many workers, including young boys, operated near dangerous firing kilns and heavy machinery without protective gear. The work was physically demanding, repetitive, and sometimes hazardous. Long shifts and low wages were the norm, and factory conditions could be crowded, noisy, and dirty. Despite this, skilled hands shaped every brick with care, knowing each piece was essential in building homes and infrastructure. Holding these bricks now, I feel a connection to those hard-working men and women whose skill and endurance made Melbourne's growth possible. It adds a new meaning to my work, placing bricks that have already carried a century of history, bridging the past with the present. Use and reclaim bricks is something I'm really passionate about. Every brick I lay has a past. It's been salvaged from old buildings or paths, getting a second chance to be part of something new. It's not just about the unique character that reclaimed bricks bring, although that's definitely a big part of it. It's also about making smarter, more sustainable choices, reducing waste, and not relying on new brick production, which has a big environmental footprint. Every brick carries its own little story, and putting them back into use keeps that history alive. To me, it's about respecting the past and making spaces that are meaningful and connected to where we come from. For the washing line area, the goal is to create a seamless connection with the rest of the path while accommodating practical access needs. I'll continue using the running bond pattern to keep visual consistency, along with the matching brick border to maintain a cohesive edge. This section will be a bit wider than the main path, providing enough space to comfortably move around and use the washing line without feeling cramped. By blending the design and pattern with the surrounding path, this wider area will look intentional and integrated, enhancing both the functionality and continuity of the garden. Grouting, a task that feels endless and monotonous, like watching paint dry or waiting for water to boil. It's a repetitive cycle of filling gaps, scrubbing away excess, and repeating. The process tests your patience and sometimes makes you question if there's ever an end in sight. Sometimes, it even leads to questioning a few life choices, or coming up with crazy ideas, like starting a YouTube channel. But despite how dull it feels while doing it, grouting is a crucial step that brings everything together, filling the gaps and locking the bricks securely in place for a lasting, polished finish. I'm using white brick sand along with a specific brand of cement that I know will set white, rather than grey. The aim is to create grout that closely matches the colour of the sand used in the joints of the other paving areas. This helps maintain a consistent and cohesive appearance throughout the garden, ensuring the different sections blend together smoothly. With the variety of cements, sands, and oxides available today, you can create a wide range of grout colours to perfectly match or complement your paving. When adding oxide pigments, it's important to be cautious. While they allow for custom colours, they can also weaken the grout if used excessively. To maintain durability, it's best to add only small amounts of oxide and mix thoroughly, testing a small batch first to achieve the desired colour without compromising the strength of the grout. Now it's just a matter of joining the paving to the pathway, ensuring a smooth transition between the two surfaces. Cutting the bricks is always a part I really enjoy. There's something incredibly satisfying about shaping each piece and slotting it into position. It's probably my favourite part of the job. I'm also extending this section slightly to accommodate the mobile planter box. For this section, which will accommodate the outdoor workbench, I'm going to follow the same curve as the path to keep the design simple and consistent. I'm attaching a strip of damp course to create a barrier and prevent the sand from slipping through the grate. Right now, I'm paving this area on a bed of sand. It's intended for the workbench, but using sand gives the flexibility to lift and rearrange the paving to change the layout in the future. It's a practical approach that recognizes how gardens are always evolving. Gardens are never static. They exist in a constant state of movement and transformation. For example, when a big tree eventually reaches the end of its life, it opens up new light beneath its canopy. That new light allows younger plants to grow and flourish, renewing and changing the garden in unexpected ways. This cycle of growth, decline, and regeneration is what keeps a garden alive and vibrant. Just like the paving here, the garden space is designed to adapt and change over time, embracing the natural flow of life. I like to use up any broken bricks for the cuts. It's a simple way to reduce waste. As the path wraps around the corner, it creates a shift in weight that often leads to cracking in paths like this. By cutting a control joint at this point, I'm intentionally creating a weak spot. The idea is that any crack will occur along this joint, keeping it neat and preventing an ugly, jagged crack from forming across the path. For our retaining wall, I'm attaching hardwood sleepers because they last longer and have a better appearance than treated pine. Hardwood sleepers are naturally more durable and resistant to weathering and pests, making them a superior choice. They can be more expensive and harder to work with compared to treated pine. However, they create a stronger, longer-lasting retaining wall with a richer, natural look. When using timber like this, it's important to make sure it was sourced sustainably. Using sustainably harvested timber is essential because it helps protect forests, preserves biodiversity, and reduces carbon emissions, ensuring resources are available for future generations. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed following along with the progress so far. In the next video, we'll be wrapping up this garden by installing the lawn, creating garden beds, and installing edging, along with plenty of soft landscaping. These final touches will help define the space and bring a sense of completion to the garden, turning it into a peaceful and inviting place to enjoy. See you in the next one. In this video, we'll be setting posts, preparing garden beds, installing edging, laying a lawn, mulching, and building a deck rail, step by step. Welcome back. This is the final chapter in our garden transformation series. And whether you followed from the beginning or you're just joining me, you're about to see the garden really come alive. To quickly recap, in part 1, we created 2 curved paving areas at either side of the garden, using reclaimed red bricks laid on sand. Part 2 brought that foundation to life with the installation of the elegant curved brick path, setting the hardscape framework that defines this space. Now, in part 3, we're turning our attention more to the softscape, the elements that bring warmth, texture, and true vitality to the garden. To start off, I'm going to be adding a railing to this deck. It's not very wide, which means there's limited space to move around. One wrong step or trip here, and you could easily fall off and faceplant right onto the beautiful brick path we carefully laid in the last video. In Australia, any deck over 1 metre in height legally requires a railing for safety. This deck is just under that at 95 centimetres, so technically it's not mandated by law. But common sense says that with such a narrow deck and the hard surface below, a railing is absolutely essential to keep everyone safe. Before I set these posts into the ground, I'm giving the bottom end a good coat of timber preservative. This step helps protect the wood from moisture where rot is most likely to start. I've found that taking a little extra time to treat the posts like this can add years to their lifespan, saving future maintenance and replacements. It's a simple but effective way to help these cypress posts stand strong for the long haul. I'm going to be using cypress posts. Cypress is a good choice here, naturally resistant to insects and rot. It holds up well outdoors without the heavy use of chemicals. Plus, sourcing cypress from sustainable plantations gives me confidence that this wood is an environmentally responsible option. While I wait for the concrete to set, I'm going to start work on the lawn area. To begin, I scalp off all the old grass and weeds, clearing the ground and turning over the soil to give the new turf the best chance to establish. We're going to stick with the beautiful curves used throughout this garden and shape the lawn to follow those flowing lines. Curves add softness and movement to the space, making the garden feel more natural and inviting. I've ordered 2 different types of soil for this garden. First, there's topsoil, which I'll be using as the base under the turf. And for the garden beds, I'm using a special garden bed mix, a blend of topsoil, compost, and organic matter. This mix is rich and nourishing, designed to give plants the nutrients they need to thrive and grow strong. Using the right soil in each area sets the foundation for a healthy garden and a lush, lasting lawn. I'm spreading the topsoil around 100 millimeters thick. This depth provides a good fertile base for the turf to establish healthy roots and thrive. This little cubby house will eventually be replaced with a proper shed, but for now, it's staying put. I'm making use of the old stepstones I saved from the very first video of this garden project. I'm laying these stones out as a path through the garden, but I won't be mortaring them in place. The plan is to keep them loose, so they can be easily moved when the time comes to build the new shed. It's a practical way to reuse materials and keep things flexible as the garden evolves. For the lawn edge, I'm going to be installing corten steel. This material gives a clean, contemporary line that works beautifully with the natural curves of this garden. It keeps the turf tidy and stops the grass spreading into garden beds, making maintenance easier. For the garden edging, once I've attached the stakes and positioned the edging, it's just a matter of carefully tapping it into place. I like to set the edging slightly higher than the lawn. This makes trimming easier and helps prevent grass from spreading into the garden beds. You also want to make sure the edging is wide enough so roots can't grow underneath it, providing a solid barrier for your garden. It's certainly not the nicest day to be mulching and laying lawn. Luckily, it's not cold, so working outside isn't completely miserable despite the damp conditions. Sometimes in gardening, you just have to roll with the weather and get on with it. To finish off the beds, I'm laying down a thick layer of premium mulch. Mulch does much more than improve appearance. It locks in moisture, controls weeds, protects reefs from temperature extremes, and gradually enriches the soil as it breaks down. For your garden, I highly recommend investing in good quality mulch. You won't regret it. It sounds like our lawn has just arrived, so I'll pause the mulching for now and finish it up later. Getting the turf down while it's fresh is a priority, and we'll come back to mulch once that's all done. I'm using Sir Walter Buffalo, a tough shade-tolerant grass perfect for Melbourne's climate. Its soft leaf texture and resilience to foot traffic make it ideal for garden and family use. Before putting the turf down, I'm going to spread a bit of lawn fertilizer across the soil. This gives the new grass the nutrients it needs right from the start, helping it establish quickly and grow strong roots. The concept of instant turf in Australia started over 90 years ago. Back in the 1930s near the Hawkesbury River, farmers began cutting sections of grass and replanting them, offering an alternative to sowing seed and waiting months for a lawn to grow. Today's turf farming is highly sophisticated, delivering ready-to-roll grass that transforms a bare patch into a lush green carpet in mere hours. Laying turf involves placing each strip tightly together, ensuring that there are no ugly gaps. It's best to make sure the joins don't line up by staggering them. I use an old bread knife to carefully cut around edges to fit the curves perfectly. Laying turf is pretty satisfying. There's something rewarding about seeing that instant transformation, turning a bare patch of ground into a lush green space in such a short amount of time. Once the lawn is laid down, I use washed sand to fill in all the joints between the turf strips. This helps to fill any air pockets underneath. If the roots are exposed to air, they can dry out quickly, and that section of grass might die. Some people like to use a roller after laying turf to press it down evenly, but I don't think it's necessary. With careful laying and proper watering, the turf will settle in just fine without compacting the soil too much. After installation, watering and initial care are critical. Keeping the soil moist, but not waterlogged, helps the grass roots take hold quickly. It's best to stay off the lawn for around 6 weeks while the new roots grow. It's a much nicer day today, perfect for finishing off the mulching and the deck rail. Working outside is always more enjoyable when the weather's cooperating. I'm going to countersink some screws to secure the top of our railing. Once they're in place, I'll fill over them so they disappear smoothly. Later, this will all be painted the same color as the house to blend in perfectly. I'll be adding some stainless steel balustrade wire to the railing, which not only looks sleek and modern, but also provides safety without obstructing the view. The stainless steel adds durability and a polished finish, making the space feel open and stylish at the same time. Now, let's get back to the mulching. Unfortunately, I won't be doing the planting in this garden, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the job. However, it's fantastic that the clients want to take that on themselves. Doing the planting themselves really helps them develop a deeper connection to their new outdoor space. Watching a garden transform season by season, year by year, is one of the most rewarding parts of working outdoors. It's a cycle of growth, renewal, and change. This garden, with its strong hardscape foundation and flourishing softscape, is ready to mature and grow with its owners. It's been a joy sharing this journey with you from stone to soil to turf. I'll see you in the next video where I'll be paving another big patio. Bye for now, and thanks for watching. Old red bricks, full of Melbourne history, laid on mortar over a solid concrete slab under this gazebo. Let's get stuck in. In this video, I'm paving a large patio under an existing gazebo here in Coburg, in Melbourne's inner north. The clients were after a solid, character-filled finish, so I'm using my usual old red bricks, laid on mortar over a concrete slab. You've probably seen these bricks on the channel before, but this job is a bit different. Instead of a crushed rock base, everything is going straight onto concrete. It sounds like the rest of our bricks have just arrived. These bricks are stamped Barclay, which likely connect back to brickworks around Barclay Street and other clay pits in the inner north. This corridor between Brunswick and Coburg was dotted with yards that fired local clay into the red bricks used across Melbourne's early suburbs. Those works changed hands and names over the decades, but the basic story stayed the same. Big the clay locally, fire it in long rows of kilns, and send the bricks out along Sydney Road and the rail line to feed Melbourne's housing and factory boom. The bricks that were already here are stamped Spear, and I'm going to mix them all together to add a bit of character to the paving. The Spear name is linked with brick-making families and yards further out in Melbourne suburbs, where clay from the same volcanic plain was turned into pressed reds for houses and pavements. Bricks from different yards always have subtle differences in colour, texture, and size, so mixing them together gives the paving a bit of depth and a story. It becomes a little snapshot of how much brickmaking shaped Melbourne's growth. Before any bricks go down, getting the levels right is absolutely crucial. Once you start laying, you don't want to be chasing big height changes or trying to fix falls with every row. If that first course isn't straight and square to your layout lines, your gaps will creep, either getting wider and wider or tighter and tighter as you move across the patio. So you'll see me take my time here with string lines and a square, nudging bricks a few millimeters at a time until that starting run is perfect. The extra patience at this stage saves you a lot of headaches later. The spear bricks are about 10mm shorter and around 5mm thinner than the Barclay bricks. That doesn't sound like much, but once you start laying them in a pattern, those differences really add up. As I go, I'm constantly shuffling the layout, staggering joints and tweaking joint widths, so the lines stay straight and your eye doesn't catch any sudden changes. It's a bit more work, but the end result is a mixed brick surface with loads of character. For the mortar bed, I'm using a mix of 4 parts sand to 1 part cement. That gives a strong bond to the concrete slab, but it's still workable enough that you can tap each brick into its final position without fighting the mix. Once that first row is locked in, I can start building out the pattern. I'm weaving the Barclay and spear bricks together rather than splitting them into separate areas, which helps disguise the size differences and avoids obvious banding. By slightly adjusting joint widths next to the shorter or thinner bricks, I can keep the overall lines running true while still letting those subtle variations in colour and age show through. For this section, I'm stopping the rows right where the gazebo finishes. Drainage is crucial here, like it is on every paving job, because about a third of this patio sits outside the gazebo, and there's a garage and timber steps nearby that we definitely don't want water running toward. To make this work, I've effectively broken the paving into 2 planes, one under the gazebo roof and one outside in the open. They will look like one continuous surface, but they're actually pitched slightly differently to guide water where I want it to go. The subtle level changes will pull the water away from the garage, away from the timber steps, away from the retaining walls, and down into the garden bed where it can soak in safely. You might be wondering why this paving is being done on a concrete slab. The soil around here is a really heavy clay, and it's extremely reactive. When it gets wet, it swells, and when it dries out, it shrinks and cracks. If you lay paving straight over that kind of movement, you're asking for subsidence and cracking. Coburg is well known for its heavy clay soils, which are characteristic of the northern suburbs of Melbourne and are formed from the weathering of underlying volcanic rock. These soils are dense and sticky when wet, and while they can be challenging, they are also nutrient-rich and support a variety of plants, especially native species adapted to these conditions. The Merri Creek winds right through Coburg, and along its banks you'll find plenty of these native plants growing wild in the natural corridor. The golden wattle and river redgum, as well as various other eucalypts, acacias and melaleucas, are all native to this area. Before any of this was suburbia, the land around Coburg and Merri Creek was part of country cared for by the Wurundjeri people, who used the creeks and volcanic plains for food and travel, long before roads and rail came through. European settlement here grew quickly in the mid-1800s, boosted by the gold rush, with Sydney Road becoming a busy route lined with hotels, shops, and one of Melbourne's earliest traditional markets right in central Coburg. Back then, the area was called Pentridge, and the big change came when a temporary stockade became a permanent prison, built out of local Bluestone, later known as Pentridge Prison. The prison dominated the area for more than a century and provided a huge amount of local employment, but residents eventually pushed to move away from the jail stigma, and in 1870 the township was renamed Coburg. For a long time, Pentridge was the landmark everyone knew, but these days people are just as likely to come here for cafes, markets and the redeveloped prison precinct, where old bluestone walls now sit beside apartments, bars and public art. It's a pretty wild shift for a place that once symbolised punishment and lockdown. Coburg went through a massive land boom in the 1880s, with new rail and tram links helping turn it into a proper commuter suburb. Not all of those subdivisions filled straight away. When the boom crashed, Thousands of empty lots were left to weeds and even herds of goats, before later waves of development turned it into the dense, mixed suburb you see today. Merri Creek has also gone through a big transformation. It used to be a dumping ground for industry and rubbish, but decades of community work and revegetation have brought back native plants and wildlife. So now you've got this green corridor cutting through the suburb where people walk, ride, and escape the traffic for a bit. A lot of Coburg's character is tied to what's under your feet: bluestone and clay. The volcanic plain here provided bluestone for quarries and clay for brickworks all through north and west of Melbourne. Many parks and reserves around Coburg and Brunswick actually started life as open-cut quarries, where basalt and clay were dug out for roads, buildings, and brick kilns, before later being turned into the green spaces locals use now. When I'm laying bricks, I often find myself focusing on the patterns they make. It's not just the basket weave pattern, it's also about the more subtle patterns created by the different colours, tones, and slightly varying shapes of these old reds. Back in the day, brickmakers took real pride in their craft, and each batch had its own character from the clay and kilns. When I try to place each brick thoughtfully, working with those natural variations, I try to honour that old tradition, blending art with practical work. Stepping back at the end of the job and seeing those tones and shapes come together is incredibly rewarding. It's a reminder that paving can be more than functional. It can be beautiful and full of meaning. I always look forward to the brick cutting stage. It's where the layout really starts to take shape. There's something really satisfying about a precise cut that slots perfectly into place. Good cuts make a huge difference to the end result. They give the whole patio that sharp, professional finish. But if you rush it with sloppy, uncared for cuts, it brings the entire job down, no matter how well the rest goes together. So embrace the noise, dirt, and dust, and just enjoy the process. Taking the time here pays off. Once all the bricks are down and the bed mortar has had time to firm up, I move on to grouting the joints. For this, I'm using a slightly richer mix, 3 parts sand to 1 part cement, for a stronger finish that helps lock everything together. Once dry, the final colour will be the option on the far right-hand side. Grouting isn't really the fun part of the job. It's a lot of mixing, sponging, wiping, and cleaning, over and over. It can be a bit like watching paint dry, but with more elbow grease. The key is grabbing a good audiobook to get through. Nothing saves a long grout session like a cracking story. Once it's all cleaned up though, those filled joints pull the whole patio together and make it look properly finished. Patios are the heart of garden living for many people. They're the spaces where indoor and outdoor life blend together. I've seen patios transform how families use their gardens. Lunches under the sun, evening meals surrounded by plants, or just a place to unwind after a long day. When I lay bricks for a patio, I think about how it'll invite people outside, encourage connection with nature, and extend the home's living space. It's not just about bricks and mortar, it's about creating a welcoming stage for life's small yet meaningful moments. Under a structure like this gazebo, a solid brick and mortar patio feels almost like an extra room. The old reds tie in with the historic housing and industrial buildings that grew up around Pentridge, the quarries and the old Sydney Road strip. The combination of a concrete base, careful falls and strong grout should keep this patio performing well for many years in Coburg's clay soils. That's the Coburg patio wrapped up nicely. If you enjoyed watching, please subscribe or drop a comment below. Even just an emoji means a lot. Knowing you guys are enjoying these really helps justify the time I put into making them. Thanks for watching. Today I'm turning a tired old backyard into a warm, functional garden, using local materials, native plants, and a few simple tricks that make a huge difference. I'm in Northcote again, working in a small back garden that, like much of this suburb, has more going on beneath the surface than you'd think. This area might be known now for its cafes and bars, but it was built on quarries, brickworks, and factories. Just up the road, old clay and bluestone pits help build Melbourne. So it's no surprise that when I start digging here, I don't just find soil. There's a shady corner here that's perfect for sitting out with a coffee during Melbourne's summer heat, but it's overgrown right now. I'm going to start by cutting back a few things and transplanting the oleander to open it up and make a proper usable space. Later, I'll also be adding some toppings here. I'm going to dig out this patchy lawn area where the new paving will go. In a small garden, a strip of struggling grass doesn't make much sense. Turning it into a proper paved zone instantly gives you a space for a table, a seat, or just a clean path through the garden. The grass has never done well here. It looks okay now, but after a few weeks of hot summer sun, it quickly dries out and dies off. As I dig down, I can feel the shovel hit something solid, and it's not just compacted soil. It feels a lot like concrete. I didn't bring the jackhammer with me, so this could slow things down a bit. It's certainly solid, but on closer inspection, it's not concrete at all. It's something much nicer and more valuable. There's a line of buried bluestone blocks running under the lawn, which explains why the grass has never really taken off here. It's been sitting on a stone lid rather than reaching down into deep soil. These bluestone blocks are a great find. They're worth good money, and even more valuable in terms of character, so I'm lifting them out carefully and putting them aside to reuse later in the garden. I've spotted a few of these little guys under the bluestone. Mole crickets. They love hiding under stones and turf, munching on grass roots and tunneling through the soil, which is another reason this lawn never stood a chance. They're common in Melbourne gardens, especially in heavier clay soils, and although native, they're considered a significant garden pest. They make a surprisingly loud chirping noise at night to attract mates, which is why you sometimes hear them buzzing from under lawns in Melbourne summers. I'm not too sure what would have made this hole, but it goes down a long way. I'm certainly not going to be putting my hand down there to find out. This is tiger snake territory, and although they don't dig themselves, they like to live in holes like this. I'm still finding buried bluestone blocks. All up now, I've uncovered around 35 pieces. Plenty to use around the garden for retaining borders and detail. These are going to add real weight and character once they're repositioned above ground. A big basalt plain runs right across Melbourne's north and west, which is why bluestone ended up in so many lanes, gutters, foundations and garden edges around here. In the 19th century, quarries in the northern suburbs were sending stone into the city for everything from churches and town halls to prisons and warehouses. At the same time, Northcote was becoming a brick-making hub. In the 1860s, a publican at the Carter's Arms Hotel in Separation Street realised the clay in his backyard was perfect for bricks, and that discovery led to the Northcote Brickworks. By the 1870s, it was pumping out up to a couple of million bricks a year. This success led to a rival brick company opening up in the area, which was imaginatively named New Northcote Brick Company. For years, the two companies competed, turning out bricks that still turn up today in old walls, fences, and even buried rubble. So when a shovel in a garden around here suddenly hits bluestone or old clay brick, it's not just random rubble, it's a little leftover piece of that industrial past finding its way back into a new garden. With the bluestone out, I can now get the levels right and start preparing the base for the paving. There are no drains or pipes to tap into here, so drainage is a bit of an issue. The aim is to build a surface that stays solid, but also lets water seep through. To do this, I'm going to be putting down a compacted layer of crushed rock for strength, then a thin layer of sand on top, so the old red bricks can be laid on a bed that drains rather than traps water. I'm still going to slope it away from the brick wall to avoid any potential issues down the track. By setting up these string lines at the level of the final brick height, I can check to see if I've removed enough soil to allow for the bricks, base, and sand layer. As it's only foot traffic in this area, around 70mm will be enough for the base. The roller door is about 5cm too low to fit my truck in, so it looks like the rock will have to take the scenic route. Crushed rock is a compactable material made from broken down stone, usually basalt or granite. It's commonly used under paving, pathways or driveways to create a strong, stable base that drains well and resists movement. Recycled crushed concrete is another great option for the same job. It's made from reused building materials, which makes it both sustainable and affordable. And when compacted, it forms a really solid, stable base. The only drawback is that it's not always easy to find, and the quality can vary, but if you can get your hands on some, it's well worth using. Back in the garden, I'm reintroducing the bluestone, but this time above ground where it can actually do some good. In this shady corner, which is a perfect spot to sit in summer, I dug out a lot of soil. Now the garden beds need to be retained. I'll using the bluestone blocks as a low retaining edge, holding the soil back and giving the bed a clear, strong line. It adds weight and texture and immediately makes the space feel more deliberate, like a small outdoor room rather than just a leftover corner. For our paving, I'll be setting the bricks on washed sand. I want a row to finish neatly on the corner of the deck. To make sure this happens, I'm marking where each row should start. I'm also using a run of bluestone as a border between the brick paving and the brick wall. Bluestone and brick always work beautifully together. The cool blue-grey stone against the warm red bricks gives you an instant contrast in colour and texture. That shift in material stops the eye from reading it as one big mass of brick and gives the space a layered, crafted feel, which is particularly important in a small garden where every edge is on show. I'm also leaving a gap with one bluestone block out, where the Boston ivy is growing. One of the benefits of paving on sand here is that rainwater can still drain through, so the plant will keep getting the moisture it needs to survive. There's only a really thin layer of sand here, around 5mm thick. The bricks I'm using are a real mixed batch from at least 10 different local brands, all made around this area 80 to 100 years ago. They vary in size and shape, and that thin sand layer lets me fine-tune the final height so everything ends up perfectly flat. As the old red bricks go down, the whole area starts to read as a proper, usable space. No more wasted strip of struggling grass. Instead, you've got paving that works for the garden, a spot for chairs, a firm base for pots, or just a welcoming zone that pulls the garden together. While I'm laying these bricks, it's hard not to think about how Northcote went from the edge of town to a bit of a boom town. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, this whole area was buzzing with brickworks, quarries, and small factories, with the air full of brick dust, coal smoke, and the sound of carts heading up and down High Street. Back then, a lot of the people who made these bricks would have walked home to simple workers' cottages, not far from where I'm standing now. Pay wasn't great, hours were long, but evenings meant heading to pubs like the Peacock Inn, the oldest hotel in the area, or the Carter's Arms. There was footy on the weekends, picture theatres along High Street, and the bustle of the old markets. Northcote also had its share of drama. This section, near Merry Creek, would regularly flood badly, like in 1911 when High Street literally turned into a canal, washing mud right up to shop fronts and into houses. Over time, drains improved, creeks cleaned up, and the old brick pits and tips became parks and plazas. But under backyards like this, you still find buried bluestone and broken brick from those days. So, when I dig up a bluestone block or lay these old reds, it feels like tapping back into that history. Instead of landfill, they get another life. This time as part of a quiet little courtyard, not a factory floor or a flooded street. I'm cutting in the bricks now, dealing with all the little edges and corners. In a small garden like this, every cut needs to be precise to keep the lines looking sharp. So I save the broken or damaged bricks specifically for those cuts. No need to waste a good full brick on something that's just going to get trimmed down anyway. For the actual cutting, I'm using a small battery-powered masonry saw. It's a lot more convenient than lugging around a 90-kilo brick saw, especially in tight backyards like this. The battery saw is lighter, quicker to set up, and does a neat job on these old reds, which keeps the work flowing and the lines looking clean. In between the bricks, I'm sweeping in some very coarse washed sand. It's basically small rocks mixed with finer sand, which packs down solid and doesn't instantly wash out like fine sand would. After I've installed the concrete edge which holds the paving together, I'll pack it all down with a 6mm mortar smoothing tool. To finish off this edge of the paving, I'm keeping things consistent by using a few more of our bluestone blocks. They separate the paving and the garden bed nicely. I'm also using a couple to stop the soil from sitting against the timber decking. I'm mixing up a bit of concrete to put around the paving. This won't be visible, but is an important step to lock all the paving together and prevent the edges from sliding away. For the concrete mix, I use 3 parts rock, 2 parts sand, and 1 part cement. Once it is set, I'm going to grab the 6mm mortar tool and really pack the sand down hard into all the joints. I like to do this at least 2 or 3 times to really make sure there are no air gaps that the sand can sink into after the first rain. I'm placing the last of our bluestone blocks in this garden bed. They're going to act as a landing pad for when the kids jump in and out of the car. I'm not going to mortar them in though. They're solid enough not to need it, and it gives the option of moving them around again in the future. The soil here is okay, but it definitely needs a bit of a boost, so there's actually something nutritious for the new roots to grow into. This is the sort of simple job that makes a huge difference. Compost adds organic matter that improves soil structure, helping it retain water and drain better to prevent root rot, while boosting nutrient levels naturally. As microbes break it down for the plants to absorb, it really enhances fertility over time for healthier growth in tough Aussie conditions. And now the fun part, the plants. I love plants. They bring life, colour, and texture to any space, transforming a simple garden into a thriving ecosystem. I've always been passionate about them, which is why I studied horticulture to learn about plant biology, soil health, and sustainable techniques. It's also the reason I chose to move away from the city and out into the Aussie bush. Here I'm planting viola, a beautiful native violet with delicate purple and white flowers that add a lovely touch of interest and sparkle throughout the year. These little beauties will gradually knit together into a soft green carpet, spreading gently without being invasive, perfect for filling gaps and softening edges in the garden bed. On the other side of the path, I'm planting dichondra as a low, soft ground cover. Using these low ground covers keeps the area feeling large, rather than taller plants that would make it feel small. And because the spot might get the odd shortcut from kids heading to the car, dichondra handles a bit of trampling without sulking. Both plants will spread and eventually cover the soil, creating a continuous sea of green that ties the beds together and reduces weeding. I'm laying granitic sand through the shady sitting area. It compacts into a firm but slightly forgiving surface that feels good underfoot and suits casual furniture or a simple bench. Once it's spread, I compact it thoroughly for a stable surface that won't turn to dust but drains well in downpours. It's a budget-friendly gem that looks effortlessly natural in the garden. What I also love about granitic sand is that because it's permeable, you can plant directly into it, making it perfect for grasses or similar tough plants that establish roots easily while keeping the surface stable and low maintenance. Now that all the plants, toppings and hardscaping are done, the final step is mulching. There are lots of options when it comes to mulch, some far better than others. I like to use eucalyptus mulch. Eucalyptus mulch comes from the eucalyptus tree, primarily Eucalyptus globulus, native to Southeast Australia. This organic mulch has a natural earthy brown tone and is a fine gum tree mulch without any leaf matter, offering a refined, neat appearance that's perfect for gardens. Once the planting's in, I mulch the beds to lock in moisture, protect the soil from summer heat, and keep maintenance low. Even while the plants are small, the mulch gives the garden a finished look that will only improve as everything fills out. It also contributes to plant growth, with its rich nutrient content, suppressing weeds while improving soil health over time. Standing back, this little Northkick garden now feels like it fits the suburb's history. In a small garden, every decision counts, and when every part of the space does a job, you end up with a garden that's not just tidier, but genuinely richer for the next chapter of its life. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Front fences are one of the easiest ways to make a house look worse. This one wasn't failing because it was old. It was failing because the design was doing the house no favours. The posts had started to rot, and the whole thing had movement in it, which made replacing it unavoidable. Structurally, this fence had reached the end of its life, but visually, it was already working against the house. Rather than rebuilding the same fence again, this was a chance to fix the real problem. With front fences, the goal isn't privacy, it's definition without dominance. You want to define the boundary without blocking the house, and without hiding the garden that sits behind it. If you can get the old posts out in one piece, it makes life much easier. Broken timber left in the ground just gets in the way and turns digging into hard work. Sometimes they're too far gone to come out cleanly, but even then, clearing as much as you can makes a big difference. I'm digging these post holes down to about 600 millimeters. For a standard residential fence in this sort of yard, that depth reduces the effect of surface movement that causes fences to loosen over time. This fence will sit at around 1200 millimeters high, so that gives roughly 1/3 of the post in the ground and 2/3 above. That balance keeps the fence stable without overbuilding it. As I'm digging, I'm not just chasing depth. The width of the hole matters just as much. I want the posts sitting centrally, with enough room around it for the concrete to actually do its job. A good rule of thumb is about 3 times the width of the post. So for a 100mm post, you're looking at roughly a 300mm hole. That gives the concrete enough cover to lock the post in and stop it rocking. For the posts, I'm using cypress pine. It's naturally resistant to rot and insect damage, which is why it's commonly used for ground contact in fencing. It's also a good option from a sustainability point of view when it's sourced from managed plantations, so you get durability without needing treated pine. Even with that natural resistance, I still like to coat the posts with a timber preserver before they go in the ground. It's quick to do, inexpensive, and it adds another layer of protection where it matters most. I don't stop at the ground line either. In my experience, posts usually fail right at the soil level, where moisture sits and splashes back onto the timber. So I coat the post to about 200mm above where the soil will finish. That small detail helps avoid one of the most common reasons fences rot out early. Once the holes are ready, I run a string line from one end to the other. This gives me a clear reference so every post sits on the same line. Using the string as a guide, I place each post as close as possible to the string without actually touching it. Then I check the post is plumb on all sides. To hold everything steady while I work, I clamp a bit of scrap timber at the base. It stops the post kicking out and means I can get it set accurately without needing a second pair of hands. With the post lined up in plumb, I can start concreting it in. I'm using a small amount of quickset concrete in the bottom of each hole. I'm not generally a fan of quickset on its own, as it's not as strong as a standard mix, but this is a busy inner city street, and these posts are likely to get knocked. The quickset pins the post in place straight away. Once that's done, I fill the rest of the hole with a standard concrete mix, 3 parts aggregate, 2 parts sand, and 1 part cement. I'll put those ratios in the description. With the post set, it's a good time to fill any knots or small splits with exterior filler. Work it in with a scraper and wipe off the excess once it skins over. This cypress is rough sawn, so I like to sand it before painting. I start with 80 grit to knock off the roughness, then finish with 120 for a smooth base that paint will stitch you properly. Next up, we're marking the fence height and where the rails will sit. I start by clamping a straight edge between 2 posts and checking it with a level. This ensures everything is perfectly horizontal before I make any marks. Once level, I mark the top of the fence with a pencil, then measure down 140mm to mark the top of the upper rail. From there, I measure down the rail thickness, 66mm in this case, and mark that too. Using a square, I measure in just over half the post thickness and mark the area where the rail will sit. Doing it just over halfway means that when the fence battens go on, they'll cover the screws and keep everything looking clean. You'd see a lot more if I stopped blocking the camera with my hat, like an amateur. I repeat the same process for the bottom rail, then transfer all these marks to the second post on this end. For the posts on the other side of the driveway, the straight edge isn't long enough to reach, so I run a string line from the top marks on these first 2 posts across the driveway. If the string lines up with the initial marks, I know the height and angle are correct, and I can mark the remaining posts accurately. Before I start cutting, I should mention the rails. These are treated pine, primed LOSP, 66 by 42mm. I start by setting the depth of the circular saw to match the thickness of the rail, 42mm. Then I make a series of cuts in the areas we marked for the posts. These cuts make it much easier to remove the wood with a chisel later. Once the bulk is cut, I use a chisel to clean out the remainder. From there, it's just a matter of repeating the process across all the posts. Sometimes, to save a bit of time, I'll drill out some of the waste using an old spade bit, a handy trick if you have one lying around. Then just clean up the rest with the chisel. After the notches are cleared, I cut off a small piece of rail to test the fit. This lets me check that the rail sits perfectly in the posts and make any adjustments before fitting the full rails. I cut the tops of the posts on a slight slope. The idea is simple. When it rains, the water runs off instead of sitting on top and soaking into the timber, and it gives a cleaner finish overall. My saw won't cut all the way through a 100mm post, so I make the cut as deep as I can and finish it off with a handsaw. The exact angle isn't critical. Any fall is better than a flat cut. Next up is cutting the rails. I clamp a square to the rail so the cuts stay clean and square. I'm not fixing them in just yet. I want to paint the cut ends first to protect them from moisture. Now's a good time to do the painting, before the battens go on. It's much easier to get full coverage at this stage, especially around the posts and rails. Once a couple of coats are on, the rails can be screwed into place. With the rails in, it's time to start on the battens. I always fix the two-end battens first. That lets me work out the spacing before committing to the rest. On this fence, the screws will be visible, so it's important they run in a dead straight line. If they wander, it really stands out. I countersink them so they sit flush and keep everything looking clean. After working out the spacing, I make a spacer to that exact width and use it as a jig. It ends up being about 16 battens per metre, which gives a nice balance between openness and definition. These battens are 40 by 40mm, cut slightly longer than the finished 1.2 metre height. I'll trim them once everything's fixed so the top line stays crisp. This fence doesn't use a plinth, which keeps the lines clean all the way through. To set the bottom, I use an old piece of timber laid across the base for the battens to sit on while I fix them. That temporary spacer follows the natural fall of the footpath, gives me a neat, consistent bottom line, and keeps the timber off the ground to avoid moisture and rot. Once everything's fixed, it gets pulled out. The battens themselves are spotted gum. It's a beautiful Australian hardwood, and it's known for its strength and durability. It's commonly used for decking, posts, and structural work because it handles weather and wear extremely well. When it's sourced from managed plantations, it's also a sustainable choice, so you're getting strength and longevity without compromising on responsibility. One of the things I love about spotted gum is the variation in colour. You get these natural shifts from pale browns through to deep reds and chocolates, which adds a lot of character without needing anything decorative. Now comes the fun part, cutting the tops of the battens. I clamp a straight edge to the fence to guide the saw and get a perfect straight line. Spotted gum can be tricky. It's prone to breaking and splintering if you're not careful. To reduce that risk, I'm using a brand new blade with plenty of teeth, which gives a clean cut and keeps the timber looking sharp. The last step is attaching the new mailbox. Since every mailbox is different, I won't go into the method here. This simple fence really complements the house and the garden, giving a clean, modern finish. It frames the space nicely without overpowering it, and the timber details will keep it looking great for years. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Bye for now.